Hi everyone, it's Nicole from Always Reading, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk about February's Novelty Book Club Book of the Month pick, Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear. This is by Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the author of Eat, Pray, and Love. I had mixed feelings about picking up this novel. I kept seeing it and being drawn to the cover, but immediately dismissed it because it's Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, that movie that became that book that became a Julia Roberts movie, which I steered clear from. Not because of Julia Roberts, not because it's a movie, just because. Being a bookseller in the time that Eat, Pray, Love came out meant that you were inundated with requests from it, left to right, back to front. Either there's that book about that woman who eats and travels and falls in love, or I just read Eat, Pray, Love. What else can I read? I only want something that reminds me of Eat, Pray, Love. So I was a little skeptical, and she has written some other books, but for me, Elizabeth Gilbert is not necessarily writing the book that I want to write or read. However, I will say this. I was able to find quite a lot of things to help me. For example, just taking a picture on some of the sections. She has courage, enchantment, permission, persistence, trust, and divinity. And in the permission segment, there's a quote in the entitlement chapter that says, "You must possess a fierce sense of personal entitlement. You will never be able to create anything interesting of your life if you don't believe that you're entitled to at least try." So as a writer, who also does NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, where you write 50,000 words in 30 days in November, this book was trying to sell the Kool-Aid that I wanted to drink. Gilbert goes on to talk about ideas, having a healthy case of fear, talking about how there's no job security within creativity. And I did really like the idea that once you create something, what other people do with it is their thing. It's not your thing. So you shouldn't get caught up in the whole, this has to be perfect, everybody's going to judge me. Because you know what? You wrote a freaking book. Like, how many people do that? Yes, more people now do it than ever because of things like CreateSpace or Amazon Kindle. But there are a lot of lazy people out there who don't do that. And this applies to all different sorts of creative living. However, I'm applying it to writing because that's the thing that I feel most comfortably and most strongly about. And I need to consider myself a writer, and I need to make more time for my writing. But there was a quote in here that reminded me of a friend of mine who is a teen librarian. And it says, "I submit that this woman has the God-given right to misread my book however she wants to misread it." And when I read that, my really amazing friend's voice just came through. Said, "Listen, it's not you, it's them." Don't compare yourself to strangers on the internet. That is also something that my other friend said. That kind of reminded me of what Gilbert was saying. Another really good passage is talking about likening people to dogs. And it says, "I firmly believe that we all need to find something to do in our life that stops us from eating the couch. Because I know a lot of people who are still eating the couch. What does eating the couch mean? They're just sitting there in the same spot, not actively creating. They're not utilizing their minds. They're living a mundane experience. And I don't like that. I really don't like that, but I know it's their life and it's not my life. But if given a choice between eating a couch and maybe going outside, checking on the fire hydrant, or waiting for my own Uber to return so I could eat something. Um, that that has meaning to me. Um, she also points out a lighthearted process does not need to result in a lighthearted product. So you can be joyous and joyful in what you're doing, but that doesn't mean you create these shiny, happy books with shiny, happy people in them who never get sick and they're all Mary Sue's. And so for me, Big Magic made sense when I took out of it what I needed. Specifically, the idea that creativity is magic, and that there is a... Okay, so think of an idea that you get as a little fairy. I'm going to say that it's a little intangible, but you could theoretically have it. So it's like a fairy specter from Disney's Sleeping Beauty. You know, those little balls of light that traveled around. And it whispers in your ear. And it says, here's this idea. And you're like, yes, that is an amazing idea. So you sit down to write about it. Or you don't. And you just consider it, and think about it, and think about it, and think about it, but you never actually do it. Well, Gilbert states that after a while, these things, if they're not nurtured, and they're not loved, or they're not recognized, will tend to fall away, get away from you, and move away, because they're not in the environment that they need to be to thrive. So they'll go to somebody else. And that idea that you had seemed amazing and wonderful and awesome. It's in somebody else right now. And they're waiting for that specific person to find that. Now, the only reason why I do not dismiss this as weird Harry Potter-ness is because about 7 or 8 years ago, I had a treatment for an idea. It was a very, very, very hastily sketched out story. And I was trolling. I was casting my net out to Netflix or Amazon Prime or one of those subscriptions that we all have. And I was looking for a new film to watch. And a film came up with the very same plot idea that I had. And I didn't really publicize it too incredibly much. I mean, this is in the beginnings of the real, hey, it's a blog, oh my gosh, phase. So if I mentioned it, it was in passing once or twice. I don't think I ever posted on any professional boards about it. It was a pretty obscure idea. But it's a movie. And it has it has an actor who was in some 80s movies and TV shows, but kind of died down in the 90s and 2000s, but has come back up in a resurgence recently. So it wasn't like it was an indie film. And when I was writing it, it seemed kind of an indie film, and I had actually got the idea for the cast based on a movie that I had just seen that tried to be a little more commercial than it really ended up being. Totally different cast, but the idea is there. And suddenly when Gilbert talks about these ideas and these muses and inspirations being tangible, that all made sense. Now granted, our human brains like things to make sense, so we may see correlations in things that don't really matter. And yes, you can argue that that stories are constantly being retold. But I think my idea was obscure enough to where it didn't really make sense in any other way. Because sometimes, I read this interview once with John Mayer who said he gets his ideas in the shower. And for a while, that's where I got some really cool ideas. And I think sometimes, inspiration strikes or doesn't strike in the most random of places, that there might be something to Elizabeth's creative magic. But that being said, it's Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, one of my most favorite hilariously bad comedy guilty pleasures is the movie Bad Teacher. In the movie Bad Teacher, Cameron Diaz plays a teacher. Lucy Pond, I think is her name. Lucy something. She is another teacher who vies for the attention of a substitute teacher played by Justin Timberlake. And Justin Timberlake is a wishy-washy kind of guy. You can ask him a question 1 minute, and he'll give you an answer. And then 5 seconds later, he'll give you a complete different answer if you try to dissuade him. Like say, oh, I think sharks should be protected. You're right, sharks should totally be protected. But if they're overprotected, they're going to start chomping on children. Well, that's true. We need to stop the shark offense. Like stupid stuff. Well, anyway, he and this teacher that Cameron Diaz is in competition with talk about their favorite book. And for both of them, breathlessly, they say the same thing. It's eat, pray, love. And then, of course, when you say, well, what's your favorite part? He looks soulfully into her eyes and says, love. I'm always going to make fun of it. I just, it did not. And, maybe when I'm a little older and I've had different life experiences, I may feel that way. But ever since I saw the movie Bad Teacher, and since the movie actually came out and the book came out for Eat, Pray, Love, I've kind of been no. Just no. So I gave it my all, gave Big Magic an opportunity, and within its 273 pages, I got out of it what I needed for my specific life experience. But I can completely understand why some people are not into it. But again, you should probably see Bad Teacher. And again, maybe see if you can get something out of it. I don't necessarily think that it's going to be for everyone. I really don't. I think it's more of the, hey, I'm in a writing mood. I'm really stressed out by a work situation, and this gives me hope, which is nice. But at the same time, and I like the idea. I mean, I read freaking Harry Potter. I'm down with whimsical or magical, because life is pretty magical if you let it be. But I don't see myself reading any more Elizabeth Gilbert. I really don't. And I'm really happy that this wasn't the life-changing magic of tidying up or whatever that book is. I'm really happy that this wasn't how to win friends and influence people. I'm really happy that this wasn't a lot of other books, because I don't care. But this, for February, was a kind of a good selection. I can't believe I'm saying that. Out of 1 out of 5, I would give this, on a good day, a solid 3. On a bad day, probably a 1.5. But the 1.5 is because of Eat, Pray, Love. And it says, author of Eat, Pray, Love on the cover. It's kind of like that whole Oprah book sticker, that they used to put on paperbacks, or trade paperbacks, or special Oprah hardcover sanctioned editions, I don't know that many people would read this and get what they need out of it and just leave the rest at the gate. And I really think that that's what you have to do for a book like this. So I appreciate the life experience. I appreciate what the lessons or the words of wisdom are for this. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Really, seriously. I enjoyed this so much more than I thought I would. But I can see people not liking it. If someone came up to me and asked me if, about living a creative life or writing, there's a lot of other books that I would recommend before this. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.